Our speaker today is Trish O'Shaughnessy, previous Rotarian, trying to get her to come back as an associate member. She is Director of Programs for Peoria Public Schools Foundation. As Director of Programs, she focuses on creating exceptional learning opportunities for students across the district. After a successful career in public relations, she made a purposeful pivot to education, bringing her communication skills and community mindset to work that directly impacts young people in Peoria. Trish grew up in Glen Ellen, Illinois, in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, and earned a BS from Illinois State University. She moved to Peoria a lifetime ago when she married her husband, Patrick. From her longtime Uplands home, she is now a big Bradley basketball fan. Sorry, Redbirds. And Trish and Patrick have 2 adult children, one a Bradley graduate and one soon to graduate in May, and like to spend their time on the front porch of their home with their baby dog, Kaz, calling out greetings to neighbors as they walk by and listening to 80s on 8. Welcome, Trish.
Can I have to get a taller document because you can't see Leah?
Hi guys, gosh, it's been a long time, but I'm so thankful to be back and talk with you all. We ended up with a glorious day today. It's not even cold, and I'm just thrilled to see so many familiar faces and friends in the audience. I brought a PowerPoint. It's not super jazzy, so but I did throw in some pictures. And I saw someone talking about your golf outing. Before I forget, Peoria Public Schools Foundation has a long-standing golf outing. We've had it for I don't even know how many years we're at, like 30, 40, I don't know. At Peoria Country Club, it is June 22nd this year. We have it open right now. So if you're interested in playing in our golf outing, we would totally invite you. We would love to have you. And that little piece of business I will get out of the way. I have one other piece of business before I start the presentation that I planned, but I was inspired by the name yourself. So over my name tag, I wrote the name Laura, and just made me think of the tremendous work you guys do as reading buddies and sponsoring the Little Free Library at Allen Academy. We are grateful for that adopt-to-school partnership, and it is one of our most long-standing and fruitful partnerships. So much so that I don't have to worry about it at all. So I appreciate that, but you guys do amazing work. And the reason I named myself Laura, when I think about the work you do with children in first grade, second grade, working with reading. So I put down Laura because the books I learned to read on were Little House on the Prairie. So I've always been, and maybe lots of people my generation were very attuned to Little House on the Prairie. A little thing about that, though, is I'm dyslexic, and I could not read. First grade, my teacher, and this will make me very emotional, but my teacher told my parents, I was just talking to my mom about this the other day, my teacher told my 20-some-year-old mom that I was just stupid, and that's just all there was to it. So I couldn't read, and my mother being, you may have met my mom's a pistol, and she was a pistol at 27 years old, too. I think she told the teacher, thank you so much for that opinion, but I don't agree. So my mother brought Little House in the Big Woods home, and along with other supports that my parents put into place, but brought this book home, and I was obsessed with the TV show, right? Obsessed. So she started reading it to me and got about halfway through it. And then she said, okay, finish the book. And there she gave it to me. And I started reading little by little, eventually better and better, all the way through the entire series of Little House on the Prairie. And because of those books, the tenacity of my mother, resources like you provide with children to give them hope, I obviously jumped from the cannot read reading group to the highest reading group and just decided that that wasn't going to impact me. But I couldn't have done it without the inspiration that books gave me. So know that when you go into those schools, if you've got a first grader who is just struggling, whose literacy level seems incredibly low, who isn't getting it, just not getting it, know that what you're doing is going to make a tremendous impact in that child's life years, decades later, that the books that you provide for them to bring into their homes, and the one that you're sending over, the cutest thing I've ever seen, that's gonna be so popular, that book's gonna be history immediately, because it's just the cutest book. That, you never know what could be the book that creates the spark that lets that child figure out how to make that work. And that piece, I just think, cannot be stated how important that work is that you do. And that supports you're giving those kids brings that inspiration to them so that they know they can do it. Because they can. They're all smart little children who are working very hard to make an educational reality for themselves. I am thrilled to bring to you a little bit about Peoria Public Schools Foundation. I know many of you in the room have been a longtime supporter of ours. I know many of you in the room have donated time, treasures, talents to the foundation. But I thought I'd just give you a quick overview. I do this right. So I put in a bunch of pictures of just a little bit about Peoria Public Schools Foundation, because we work for all students in Peoria Public Schools. We are a separate 501c3. We are not the district. And so we are independently funded. We don't get district funds at all. Although I do carry a district email address. They graciously let us use their email address system. I also am badged as foundation. So I wear my little foundation badge so that I can logistically get in and out of buildings. So we have an incredibly special relationship with Peoria Public Schools. Everything we do is for Peoria Public Schools. However, we are a 501c3. And we get our funding through direct donations, through our golf outing on June 22nd, in case you want to play. We do a lot of grant writing. We've been very, very fortunate to have local community supports with community grants, with direct donations. A lot of family foundations in Peoria support us quite often. So we're just very thankful and grateful. Organizations like yours who support us through your Adopt a School program, through your support directly to Alan. I mean, all of that is just amazing work, but we do a lot. So I just threw up our mission and values. That's straight off of our website. And in the corner, I put my current board. So these are separate people from the school board. We are not affiliated with the Board of Education. These are individuals who donate their time to be on our board, to work as our advisors, to give their time and talents to us. We're really grateful for them. And in the very little corner, you can see Sydney Morris's eyes. She sends greetings from Italy. So it's spring break, and she went on a anniversary trip with her husband. So our mission is really to provide outstanding educational supports for the students in Peoria Public Schools. A little bit about our district for those that are unsure. We are one of the largest districts in downstate Illinois. We have about 13,000 students. We run multiple schools across the district. We're a very diverse district, whether it be racially, socioeconomically. We have a lot of different children. Actually, I heard an interesting statistics, and I'm not sure it's still true, but I have a feeling it's pretty close, that Richwoods High School, one of our three high schools, reflects demographically the city of Peoria almost exactly. So I thought that was sort of interesting, that Richwoods really reflects what Peoria is. My son went to Richwoods, loved it. As a principal over in middle school, so really great experience. But we are a diverse district. That being said, we do run about 70% low income. And so our students have a lot of unique challenges and barriers to acquiring a really thorough education, to know what their children, they're just children, and we try to do what we can. So in order to help support that so that they can be focused on their job of education and learning as much as they can, I always tell the kids, so you can get a big, giant, smart brain and go out and take care of me when I'm old. so you have great jobs in Peoria and take care of me. We try to find emergency funding for children and families. So that encompasses uniforms, that encompasses food supports, that encompasses emergency supports for rent and utility, glasses, shoes, you name the request, we've probably had it sent to us. We've paid for rent, we've bought bedding, we've bought steel-toe boots for somebody in an internship. The request has probably come in. So we use that as our emergency funding. We also run very traditional classroom for our teachers. So traditional foundation work, teachers or actually any staff can apply for our grant cycle and get funding from us once a year. I run scholarships as well for seniors going off to college, and so that's an incredibly important piece of what we do. A huge piece that I know many of you have been involved in is our career programming supports. So we run direct programs in our schools from kindergarten all the way through 12, with our most noticeable one being our middle school Horizons program. And then, as you are intimately aware, we run an Adopt a School program for the district, and that looks different at different schools. A little bit about the emergency supports. As I said, we run the little free pantries that you see around the district. So that is supported by individuals who donate money directly, and we order food then through Hy-Vee and have it delivered to the buildings. It's also funded by people who do drives, or some organizations collect food and take it directly there. So it's kind of a variety of different things. We keep a uniform closet, so if a child doesn't have a uniform, there's a system, they can let us know. Brand new uniforms are sent from our storage to the school so that the child has uniforms, so that clothing is not a barrier to education. We also have other clothes for high school students who would need clothing, shoes, glasses, all those types of things. I run coats out. As I said, rent and utilities supports, we run those. Basically, we're their first stop. Often when parents are running into financial problems in those realms, sometimes the first place to find out is the school. We can get them up to date and then get them to resources for more long-term supports. So we get it so that they're not, evicted, so that things aren't turned off, and then we will get them to resources. And then other requests. So this is a huge piece of what we do, is emergency supports. And every year it has become a bigger and a bigger piece of what we do. That is really tiny, but that just gives you a little bit of breakdown of some of the numbers that we have. I tried to make it bigger, but that didn't work. So anyway, little tiny, I'd be happy to email that to you if you want to see those numbers. And they're also on our website. Our classroom grants that I mentioned, we are really thrilled and honored to be able to work with the Community Foundation to support teachers in their innovative ideas in their buildings. We have multiple types of classroom grants. We have a lot, every year we hope to fund every single one. And some years we can and some years we can't, but we always tell teachers, if you don't get it this year, please apply again. I was just in a meeting talking about field trips. One of them that I think of often, there's a science teacher at Richwoods who applies for like every grant in the world. And he takes all his science club kids up to Chicago every year to museums and stuff. That's all funded through us. We did a butterfly garden at Valeska Hinton. We have done, this year we gave a grant for a building that was working with some special needs children who were hearing impaired. And so it helped bring in curriculum for them that would be aligned with some of the things they need. So it's a really diverse type of grant. We have separate committees that come together and review those. We don't review them ourselves. They decide, and then we just award. So it's about 50 grants every year, depending on funding and what people are looking for. We would love to do more. If you would like to, donate into a grant fund, we have restricted ways to do that. This is my baby. And I've spoken often. Many of you in here have spoken for us. So we run career exploration programs, and I was saying about 15, can you believe that was 15 years ago, when my Charlie, who is graduating from Bradley, was at Whittier. I was approached by Cindy and the Peoria Public Schools Foundation. Glenn Barton was on the board at the time, and they were looking to go into direct programming and wanted to develop career exploration for middle schools. And they didn't really know what that looked like. I am not an education by background, but I had been working in the schools quite a lot in a very traditional PTO role. I was the PTO president at Whittier. I became PTO president over at Washington Gifted. I was that mom. And Cindy and I chatted and thought we could come together and create a career program. We started 15 years ago in 3 schools as a pilot. This program now serves about 800 kids across the district every year. We're in all 12 middle schools. We have a staff of 7. And it is just incredibly impactful and heartwarming. Not only do I have anecdotal evidence of just, they call me Mrs. O, Mrs. O, Mrs. O, see what I'm doing now, Mrs. O, look at me. Amazing. I have a student who was in my very first Horizons, and I remember she was in 6th grade. She wanted to bake bagels for a living. She took her Josh. She wanted to make bagels, and by 7th grade, she was like going to make bagels and be a photographer. And by 8th grade, she was going to make bagels, be a photographer, and possibly go into communication. She then went on to Peoria High to be valedictorian. She then graduated from Illinois State in communication, went to the University of Illinois, has a master's degree in library sciences, and is now the children's librarian over in Dunlap. And I see her all the time. She's lovely and getting married. And I remember, you know, back to that little girl who wanted to make bagels. But I think her through line through the whole thing was she was looking for ways to help. So for her little girl self, it was being an entrepreneur and help create the food scene in Peoria. For now, it's certainly working in communication. But we have thousands and thousands of stories of amazing children who have done great things. Whether it's I run into them and they're now the store manager at a McDonald's that they started working at in high school and now they're running in management, up to, I ran into a kid the other day, not a kid, he's like 26, who works for transportation now because he just really loved children. And he was like, Mrs. O, don't you remember me? And all of a sudden I'm like, of course I do. Oh my gosh. And he is still as vivacious and fabulous and such a great person to mentor and be with our children on the buses. So we do that system. But we also do quite a lot of other career exploration. We remember the old See It, Be It back in the day with Align Peoria. So that's still in effect. So Align Peoria, and we created the See It, Be It program with a whole bunch of other people. Intent was to work with kindergarten through 5th graders to catch even younger. And at the time, what we didn't know was that the state was actually going to start moving into some of this work, creating pacing guides and all these things that we now align with. But Peoria Public Schools was really on the forefront of some of this work. And so we created a See It, Be It program. We brought career speakers into every classroom in the district. We did go on field trips. COVID pivoted that slightly, as it did everything, but we still do See It, Be It. I do bring in speakers to all of my classrooms across the district at various levels, whether coordinated through their counselor or I coordinate. We still do some reverse field trips, and in fact, AMT will be coming into all my kindergartens in a couple weeks. So they like to bring their ambulance and let the kids get on it and learn about, you know, being a paramedic, and they give them this little book. So it's really fun. And we also do a SIP Day career speaker series. So SIP days are our days we have a few times a year where there's a half day. Children get out early. The teachers then in the afternoons go into trainings and stuff district-wide. In the morning, they're always looking for like a jazzy way to help. We coordinate speakers on MS Teams. They are running every 45 minutes. They are live. There is a foundation person there to help facilitate the meeting. Classrooms come in on smart boards. the kids watch, they ask questions, and they get to see a diverse group of speakers that way. So however it works on their schedule, I think most of the kids that are in those teams meetings are probably middle school, but we certainly have high school rooms coming in. I've got little kids coming in. It's a great way. If anyone's interested in being an MS Teams speaker on SIP days, I have one coming up the first week of May, and on my website there's a sign up genius link. We're looking for a few speakers still. And then of course our Adopt a School program. And I actually think that is your garden over at Hines. So that's why I pulled that picture. Yeah, and so.
Yeah, that guy in the middle looks pretty cool.
The Adopt a School program, you guys are intimately involved in. And as I mentioned, one of our most thorough working Adopt a School partners that we have. And we are very, very grateful for that. That's just a snapshot, a little bit of what the foundation does. We, all jobs as requested. That's kind of our motto. If we get a call from a building, a school, the administration, the superintendent, we'll try to figure it out and see what we can do. But I open it up for any questions that you guys may have for me about, I don't know anything about the new well, actually I do know the new superintendent. I've worked with him very closely. But other than that, I don't know anything about the district, but anything about the foundation or any questions you have? Yeah.
So I always start off thanking the speaker and an immense appreciation for you being here. The question in my head, and I think you helped answer that, is I work at a food pantry on Saturday, loaves and fish, and I see a lot of at-risk children, homeless children. And then I think about what future do they have, and especially if there's not a parent at home, a mother, father, grandmother, something like that. What chance do they have? And then you're so kind to be here and talk about your program. I can see that maybe really helping. So just an observation.
Well,
thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your work. I say we probably can't invest enough resources into helping to alleviate kind of the food desert crisis that's in Peoria. We cannot raise enough money for food. I will put food in, it will be gone immediately. And in parts of town that maybe you're like, oh, that, we don't need a food pantry. No, we do. It's shocking. But I'm super glad that people have access to food, because how can you be a strong learner if you're hungry?
Just following up on that thought is that, so we're First United Methodist Church. We've been blessed with some large donations from well-to-do people and the rest of us. But one of our programs that does the best for funding is Loaves and Fish. Yeah. Annually, we get people write us comfortable checks, and it's because we're feeding children. Yeah, and I'm so grateful. And that's the other thing, and I think the district tries to say that. I think they've tried to make strides. We certainly do with our partnership with other agencies and trying to work with other people. And we recognize that one service agency, one organization like the Public Schools Foundation can't do this alone. So we certainly rely on not just our Adopt a School partners, but for other agencies to have the bandwidth to do it on their own programs, because we do need to meet people in multiple places. One advantage we have, not an advantage, but just a strength we have at the Peoria Public Schools Foundation is we are affiliated with the schools. So oftentimes, it's a teacher, a counselor, a principal who notices that there's something happening that needs to be addressed, a parent who doesn't know where to go or what to do, who will say something to the teacher or to the counselor, or the child will. And so we can come in kind of as an emergency service immediately. But that being said, all these supports have got to happen all across the district
and across Peoria, because, one agency doesn't have the bandwidth to do the whole lift. So we really appreciate the work that you guys do, and all of the other agencies and churches and nonprofits in town who are trying to, create this reality. Yes, I worry all the time about what are we gonna do. I always think there for the grace of God go I. I mean, I happen to have been born in a, family that had quite a lot of education, and I grew up in a very lovely upper income area of Chicago suburbs. But that was just, there for the grace of God go I. And I wanna make sure that I do, as the adult in the room, that I do everything I can to make sure that these children have the best chance that I can give them. And so I try to think of it that way each day, that I'm just doing my best. I'm not their parent, and I'm not in charge of everybody. Well, sometimes I pretend like I am. And you guys know me, but I'm not. And so I just want to make sure that I can just do my best to try to, give that service to them.
Trish, I'm glad you brought up the CFP.
Thank you so much.
I remember
Oh my gosh, Harvey.
going to kindergarten, speaking
Yes.
to 3 kindergarten classes. I've never been as nervous in my life
But you did a great
as I was,
job.
and I found my notes for that. I had written out my whole thing, which I never used when I was in the classroom because they didn't give me a chance to. But if anybody gets a chance, this was not 7 years ago,
Yeah, it was a long time ago,
8
right?
years ago, 2018. And if anybody gets a chance to do that, I'd highly encourage you, because it's such a great learning experience to, again, I was more nervous there than I was in front of bank boards, talking to those kids. And they came up with some comments that were just absolutely incredibly funny, but also insightful. And so I'd encourage people that get a chance to take advantage of it and do it.
Well, thank you for those comments. I would love to bring everybody in, and you were instrumental. He was one of the driving forces in making that program a reality, making sure it happened, and then also, we were so grateful that we were able to keep momentum and keep that going. Because that little contact with those children, you never know when it's gonna spark something that they remember and are like, oh yeah, I remember the banker came in, and I didn't know what bankers were, but then I found out. So you just never know. Or sometimes it's even less about the job and more about the oh, they said that you don't have to be the best person in math, but you just had to be really, tenacious or thorough or whatever. And I'm that. And I'm going to work on my math because I really want to do that. So you just never know what'll spark with somebody. Yeah.
I thought I'd bring this up. Thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you.
But I'm on a board called Upgrade, which is in charge of the public housing near on Forest Hill, across from the Salvation Army. And several years ago, Ed Siebert was on the board with me and Jeff Alexander.
Yeah.
And we decided one way maybe to get young people out of public housing would be through education.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to a church, Baptist church on the other side of the Salvation Army, and asked them what they were using this house for that was empty.
Yeah.
And they said nothing. So Ed and I went in and replaced the floors, and we brought kids in after school for tutoring.
Yeah.
And their grades improved. And these were kids right from the housing project. And I'll never forget, I had a doctor from my church. He wanted to know what we were doing, and so I had him come down, and we had all the kids in one room. And he asked one of the kids for a piece of paper, and he folded it up in about 18 different directions, and he flew it at him. And the next kid wanted one, and he folded it and flew it at him. And they said, how did you do that? And Dr. Hugo Weber said, you gotta learn geometry.
Yeah.
But that program worked for a while. We had probably about 1.5 years to 2 years, and then we lost the volunteers to come in and work with them. And then we used to send them home with a lunch or dinner, kind of. Some of them didn't get much to eat at night. And I tried through the children's home to get women to come in and work with the mothers to see the importance of education. So the mothers, most of the mothers aren't educated. But if I knew about you, we would have come for aid.
Thank you for that, and I would say that, you know, we always, to piggyback on that, we are always happy to meet with organizations, obviously Rotary, but if you're in other organizations or businesses that would like to discuss with us ways that you can get involved to help, from being career speakers to running mentoring programs to becoming part of other programming, we would be happy to come in and have that conversation. See, you know, a place that your heart would be to align, if there's a school you particularly would like to work with, or if you're just looking for recommendation on best places to follow the type of program that you are interested in doing. I love to come out and talk with you and have that conversation and see how we can align. The need is great. The mentorships and programs like that, not only do they help academically, when you think about, you know, if you're working on these homework projects and you have a parent who struggles at that academic level to do some of the projects, you know, if my kid came home, my Alex, I got on the Skyward, the kid's getting a D in Spanish, like what? But by the time that kid came home from school, I had him lined up with a Spanish tutor from Bradley, a meeting with the teacher. I was like, we were on this. But I have a lot of resources. I could do that. I know people. I have money to pay for the tutor. I mean, the kid, I paid so much money for that Spanish tutor, the kid still can't speak Spanish. He can swear in it though. But, you know, so there are things that I can do. For some of these children, the parents, you know, they want their child to have tutoring, they want help. The district can put as much money in, but it can't reach everybody maybe who needs it or aligns with the right times. So programs like that are very helpful. Couple that with not just academic help, but that mentorship piece, that adult who is involved in your life, who cares about you, who shows up, that is huge. And, you know, I was in a meeting and they talked about, think about like your first teacher. Think about an adult who wasn't your parent, who helped you along the way, whether it be, you know, somebody from church or somebody from Scouts, or, you know, the guy down the street. I met a gentleman who taught piano in our neighborhood, and he learned how to play piano. He grew up in Chicago in Lincoln Park because he would come home from school and his mom was working, and so the guy down the way was a jazz musician. And he would go hang out with this guy who was like, you know, home waiting to go to work. And this guy taught him how to play piano. And so that sparked that mentor piece. And so you never know when that'll work. But I do know, and the data is clear, that when you invest your time in mentoring and tutoring and aligning with children and being there, that makes a huge impact. That goes a long way. And so you will see improved grades. Or you will see improved mental health, or you will see an ability to start dreaming where they want to go, what they want to do, and what does life look like outside of living in some situations with a lot of barriers. So it's huge. It's just huge, and the work you do is tremendous. Thank you so much for letting me come. Always a pleasure to come back and talk with you guys. And I was like super jazzed, and I got beat Barracks. So thank you so much.